another session of Jungle Secrets, our online platform for sharing interesting information on subjects related to natural history. This year, we are celebrating 20 years of Jim's Jungle Retreat, and Jim's Jungle Retreat, which is a rewilded conservation lodge located in the buffer zone of Govt Tiger Reserve, is an amazing place. Over the last 20 years, a lot of local flora has been planted as the rewilding effort, and this has resulted in great habitats. Once you have your flora in place, a lot of biodiversity comes into play. We have recorded over 250 species of birds at the property, over 80 species of butterflies, more than 20 species of mammals, over 25 species of reptiles, many amphibians, but not to forget the spiders, these eight-legged creatures, the arachnids. We have amazing diversity of these creatures here. Today's expert is Devi Priyadarshini, who has already done a couple of sessions with us on spiders, and today she is going to talk about spider webs, spider silk, and spider web designs. Devi Priyadarshini, who is a scientist with the Regional Natural History Museum, is an amazing person, and she has amazing love for these creatures called spiders. She has worked in varied landscapes on spiders, and be ready to hear some interesting stories, get some fantastic nuggets about these great creatures, the eight-legged spiders. Thank you. Have a great session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. I'm sure today's talk will also be a little, different from what we have done before. And I hope that what we talk today will be relevant also to what we have already spoken about regarding spiders. Today we are trying to speak about silk, which is basically their lifeline. So they call it drag line in the spider science, but we call it lifeline because without silk, probably spiders will be not themselves. So this is the one thing in their entire life cycle which makes them so different from all other arthropods. Though we know that spiders do produce silk along with other insects like moths and dipterans and so many other insect orders which would produce silk, but spider silk has got special significance in medical sciences, in bioengineering, in whatnot fields today. But we will keep this a little focused to the spiders and their lives and not go too much into bioengineering and biophysics. But yes, how does silk define spiders is what will be basically there in this today's module. I hope you will all like the compilation of whatever I've tried to gather together, and let us set into the journey. So before we start, I think all of us know already that spiders do produce silk, and they are known so many times for producing different types of silk. That is basically, we'll go into the analysis, we'll break it down. But before I start, let me tell you that this one particular presentation will be a little technical, I would say, because there are things which many of us may not know. Even there are things which I'm still learning about them even today. And like I said, we will keep it a little spider centric as to what silk has to do with the spiders, then go into the bulletproof and the fancy stuff around which you listen on the internet very often. Uh, but before that, this talk will be divided into two basic parts, maybe three, like we have discussed before. And this will be mostly about the silk structure, which is the second part. The first part will be the web structures. So there are two different things. One is silk, the other is web. Please do not confuse. So silk is the component, web is the product or the design which they create. So like our topic says, the mysterious lives of web designers. And I had in the first presentation, if you remember, I have told you the story about Arachne and the Greek god. So that is where this comes along from that particular legend. It's still drawn down to this particular day where we have understood silk to its nit grits, I mean, to the basic composition of it. So this has been, I mean, the silk has been an integral part of the spider's life cycle. Almost all species, though we know that there are many families which do not spin silk or do not produce silk, but somehow or the other, every spider has to create an egg sac. They may not be having a flamboyant, 3D structure of silk like the orb weavers, but every spider will have to reproduce like it is in biology. And to wrap that particular egg or the eggs together, say 100, 150 odd eggs sometimes, they need silk. So technically speaking, all spiders produce silk. Okay. And like the cuckoo has got you know, a way to lay eggs in somebody else's basket, spiders do not have so. So at least for egg production or the egg sac creation, they will produce silk. Let's go ahead and see first what type of web structures are created out of silk. Then we will go into the composition of silk, a little about the molecular structure and glycol aniline stuff about the peptide bonds, the structure of how the silk is different from the insect silk, and then the applications. These are the basic contents we will be covering today. We'll talk a little about guild also. And because I have done my studies in the paddy fields, so some of the slides may be related to paddy fields, but you can always consider them in the general scheme. Okay, so little introduction every time before I just thrust myself into the whole topic. I want, if there is a new audience, in case, I would like to tell them about how many spiders in the animal dome or the kingdom do they expect. This particular relative graph tells you in comparison to mammals, how many spiders should you see in the world or do you expect in your surrounding? So if you see after insects, it is the spiders only which are the largest in numbers. And that whole big circle you see on the left side of your slide are the insects, most of which is still unknown to us. So the arachnids, the amphibians, some birds, they are all the controllers of insects. So insects undoubtedly the largest protein source of other animals on the planet, largest in numbers, but we will be focusing on spiders. And this is a very important slide, although it doesn't look like an important slide. Lucas says, what does a spider do in an entire day? Look at how much of time it is resting. Can any of you quickly tell me what does resting equate to? 1, does it equate to sleeping? 2, does it equate to rest? 3, does it equate to ambush or prey stalking? 4, is it something else which we don't know? Quickly in the chat box, please. Anything which can come up to your mind, what does resting mean? Do you see that 71% or let's say 72% of the entire day, it's just resting, a lucky fellow. What does resting mean here? Any one of you, those who have maybe, tried to look at spiders or maybe observe some of them? Is it just idling away? Or does it have something to do in that resting period? So the talk ahead, when it slowly reveals itself, okay, some answers, but I don't think I'm getting my answer. Anyway, so a spider, like doesn't have eyelids. So even if it has to rest, it'll have to rest like this, staring at some place, going into a state of dormancy, reducing the action of the rod and cone cells because it has simple eyes, but does not get to sleep. So it has a recluse into which it can slip in. It could be a lycocid, a wolf spider, could be a jumping spider, could be arachnids on the webs, could be any spider for that matter. They also have time to, shrink themselves into a small place and take rest. But resting does not equate to sleeping exactly. Like I said, they cannot sleep. Sleep as in sleep. But they do go into a phase of dormancy where they are not actively hunting or web building. Also mark that 18% of the time is web building, which does form a considerable amount of the entire the whole day, the chores which they carry out in the entire day. So web building is important because that is their ultimate tool with which they can capture food. Here, resting is also because they have to regenerate their energies, sometimes digest silk, again create the same silk. They can eat it and build it back again. So amazing recycling machines they are. And praying and eating is obviously, hunting and the other things. Arachnids and insects, we have spoken about this before. We are not going into length into this whole thing. We all know how they are different. Just to tell you, the number of eyes, the number of legs, different in both of them. And arachnids would technically prey on the insects, though it's not a rule all the time. Sometimes the vice versa also happens. How do we identify these spiders? Interestingly, when you look at the silk of spiders, this is a very generic kind of an identification module, which is all available in the internet. This is not created by me. This is a depiction taken from the internet, and this will tell you basically how to look head on onto the spider and identify what species it could be. But this can only give you a very uh, rough idea about what the family is. You cannot straight away go into the species identification, which is difficult. You need to take a lot of things into consideration if you have to reach the identification of the species. Now, in this particular talk, we will be interestingly watching as to how to identify a spider looking at its web. Many times you can segregate it to the family level, sometimes even the genus level. For example, so these are some of the spiders which will be pretty common in a paddy field, and uh, you can see a concoction of them. The longer ones below are tetragnathids. They are web builders. This is a lycocid, which is a ground dweller. This is a aranid, Argiope catenulata, pretty common in the paddy fields. This one on the right side is a salticid, like you can see the giant eyes in the front. This is Bienor. Okay. These animals, I mean, these spiders will be prominent in a paddy field. But what about the other forest ecosystems, other places like grasslands and deciduous forests or even semi-evergreen forests? What about them? Usually, what is seen to eyes and what attracts attention are the webs. That is where we can identify the species from. And how do you know what spider and what web? We'll come to it slowly. Okay, so here you find these are designated into different guilds. Now, what is a guild? If you look at a particular ecosystem, you will see that they have been associated with the niche in which they would feed, reproduce, dwell, and also operate. That forms the guild. So, for example, if you take a aranid, let us say, this builds a web. So this will typically always be there in a canopy. It needs branches and leaves, some 3D space available to build a web. Similarly, tetragnathids, which are mostly found around water bodies, or like I said, the base of the paddy fields, sometimes mid canopy of the paddy fields. In the forest ecosystem, you'll always find them very close to a particular pool or a water body across which they can build a web because they are horizontal web builders. Okay, they also make a circular web, but that is in a planar surface or a horizontal surface. The aranids will make it vertical. Tetragnathids make it horizontal. The Euloboridae, the last family you can see in the orb weaver category, makes a 3D web, but this web is way more complicated than the others. We will come to the types of webs later, but just understand how to find out a spider in a particular locality according to its guild. Now, what is a guild exactly? Like I said, this composes of what the spider eats, what kind of web pattern it can build, its niche, the habitat, and where exactly in the ecosystem it is located. Is it located at the base of the tree? Is it located at the top of the canopy, in mid canopy, or where exactly do you happen to find it? That is what forms the guild. Now, what are the major feeding guilds? We have orb weavers. Orb weavers means wheel-like structures or the concentric ring-like structures which you see in a web. Very commonly in garden spiders also you can see. In the signature spiders also you can see. Most commonly seen spider web are the orb weavers. Space builders. I have put down the families, but those who are not conversant with the family names, we will go on to see the pictures also. Just bear me till I can brush past this particular slide. Space builders, like the name suggests, they would take up some space and create an irregular web. So mostly seen in the theridity. If you look at a tree branch and there is exactly a Y-shaped branch sometimes in the middle, center of it, go to just any random tree in a deciduous forest, and there will be a section where the tree just diverges, the branches diverge. Exactly at the point where the Y is formed, you will find a theridid definitely present over there. What is interesting about theridids is they do make a irregular web, and we'll see the structure in a minute. But how do they know that this particular space will have a dry leaf exactly falling there, and they take refuge beneath it? In fact, every time I find a dry leaf hanging in this Y straight structure, we find even egg sacs beneath them. So next time you see a tree and walk a forest trail, find this Y particular shape of a tree where it diverges into two branches and try to see the theridid there. They are extremely space specific. The space builders actually need that space, and most of the theridids will be seen there if it is not a ground dweller. Again, depends on different genus in a family, cannot be a thumb rule. The others are falsidae. Falsidae is the ones which you can find inside your homes with very thin legs, and they will be mostly holding the egg sac from the mandible. Okay, Polcus and Crossoprisa are the most common genera which we find here. Ericidae, although not a hardwired space web builder, is mostly it depends on thorny scrub vegetation to make its webs, and it would take help of a mesh kind of a web with lot of tunnels born into it, into which the huge number of spiders can live. So they are social spiders which will live in more numbers than one, unlike the others where you will always find a singular spider. Social spiders in one particular mesh web, which can be, like a feet to more than that in size, and completely in a 3D shape. It's huge. There will be more than 100 spiders in one particular, mesh web if you can really open it up. But please don't do it. There will be 1,000 tunnels. You can make sure that every tunnel could take you to one particular spider, and you can count the number of spiders there. Sheet web builders mostly found on the foliage. So they will be on grass, on the floor, or on the foliage. Very thin silk layer, and beneath them, they will be making the nest. Found in the Dictinidae family, the grass ones in the uh, floor of the canopy are Linyphidae. These two families most prominently under sheet web builders. Foliage runners, like the name suggests, these are spiders running on the leaves. They will be mostly from these families: Sparacidae, Hercilidae on the trunk, though not exactly on the leaves, Clabionidae beneath the leaves again, and Cheracanthidae on the yellow sac spiders. Ground dwellers, very commonly seen, lycosids, like we all know, they make those tunnel-shaped webs on the sides of the forest paths. Zodaridae, you have to be a little careful to find out Zodaridae, but they are pretty interesting and extremely beautiful spiders. If you can find one, we will be showing you some pictures ahead. Gnaphosidae, pretty shy, but you can find them in the canopy if you can turn around leaves. And Liocranidae. These will be Sphingius and similar genera, which you will be finding beneath the rocks sometimes, beneath soil, and at the base of trees many times. So this is a little about guilds. There are two more important guilds which was not covered in the last slide. One is ambushers. The name says that they will ambush their prey. So can you tell me whether ambushers will actually be building silk, spinning silk or not, from what the name suggests? Quickly in the chat box, why did I segregate these two particular guilds and not the others? Just take a look at the families and what does it look like? You must all have seen crab spiders, isn't it? Thomisidae. What about their silk building or silk weaving mechanism? Are they very good silk weaving spiders, or are they not? To ambush prey, they technically do not need silk as a tool, as a particular apparatus to hunt. They just need to hide themselves in some recluse, in some particular, somewhere they can just keep themselves hidden and then stalk their prey. So these particular families will spin silk only when they have the need to create a bed for the babies or a egg sac for the babies. So that is how all of these families mostly do not dwell on a silk web. Okay. Thomicidae, like we know, is mostly on flowers, very camouflaged. In the previous presentations, we have seen so many pictures. But on the other side, the other families I have labeled here, other than Selenopidae, Agelenidae is a pretty common spider family, which you will find at the root of the trees, sometimes on the grass, on foliage, on the ground canopy, creates these fishing net structure. It's called the fishing spider. I'm sorry, the net casting spider, which will cast the net, and it does spin silk and stalks the prey with silk. So these two families are exceptional, not having been put into any particular guild, but they do spin silk. Okay. I hope I've made myself pretty clear about which family does what. So we were in this slide before. So I was telling you what kind of web, which family exactly tries to create. So the orb weavers will create a vertical orb. Tetragnathidae family technically will create a horizontal orb, and the Uloboridae makes a hackled web orb. Okay. Now we will see what structures they actually, these are some others from the different guilds which we have just learnt in the previous slide. The foliage dwellers, I said Sparacidae, they always are there on different foliages, mostly Oleos, Nathopalistis, even, yeah. But Heteropoda and the other genera, you can find them on the ground also many times. Lycosidae, many of us ask whether Lycosidae family is a funnel web builder or a tunnel web builder, or are they not web builders because they are ground predators. So it goes like this, that one of the genus in Lycosidae, which is Hipasa, does make those tunnel kind of webs, and sometimes is referred to as the funnel web spider or the funnel web wolf spider from Hipasa. But most other genera in this family do not build webs or these patterns which you see. Okay, they will just predate and by running and hunting. The other one is Oxyopidae, that is also a stalker, and you will only find them building, making a silk recluse or a silk. This thing is only when they have to guard the egg sac. That is the necessity of silk for them. These are these are the different types of webs which we find. We have already seen them. These are just the names. So, like I said, there can be a lot of common names to spider webs. Please don't get confused. I told you where to find what is the most important thing in spiders. So on the tree, you will mostly find spiral orb webs. Aranidae, Tetragnathidae, Uloboridae. We just covered. These are round in shape, circular, and will sometimes have signatures on them, sometimes have stabilimentum in them, differing from different genera. Argiope makes signature webs, signature marks. The Cyclosa will make stabilimentum. We'll also see that in the upcoming slides. Funnel webs, like I said, some of the Lycosids make it, most of the Agelenids make it. Tangle webs or irregular shaped cobwebs. Family Theridiidae, specifically, no particular shape of the web, irregularly shaped. I'll show you some with the dewdrops that will make your idea very clear about what is a tangle web. Now, tubular webs are made by Segistridae family and some other families also, where the spider is a tube-dwelling spider. Okay, and sheet webs we have already discussed. The mesh like silk on a thin sheet of silk, mostly on the foliage, will be made by sheet web dwellers. Now, these are some of the sketches which we have come up with to make it a little clear, because sometimes when you look at photographs, it could be a little misleading. So this orb web you see is vertical. Now, Uloborides will make a hackle web. Like I said, it suspends from one particular point and then will make a orb inside that triangle. And then we have the horizontal webs, orb webs of Tetragnathidae family. common arachnids which you will encounter when you walk a forest path is mostly the garden cross spider, argiopes, which are signature spiders, and most commonly Nephila. Nephila, let me tell you, has got the strongest silk in the entire spider world, because of which lot of research has now gone into the golden obweaver, like they call it in the West, because its silk has got this yellow tinge to it, very different from the others. You can also sometimes find that Bijoaranius mythificus has also got a golden yellow color silk, and the texture of the silk is different from the normal other Neoscona and the other genera. So through genera also, the kind of silk, the nature of silk, and the physical properties of silk would differ. We may not have exact detail about every particular genus or species, but if you encounter them by touching sometimes on when you pass through a forest path, it will come on your face. Sometimes when you touch silk with fingers, you can clearly make out the difference. So next time you're there outside, please touch this silk. Do not just disrupt the whole thing. Just one particular radial thing you can touch and feel how different it is in different species. That is pretty interesting why they need a different kind of silk with different kind of habitats or species. Now, although this is one of the orb weavers, but like I said, different genera, different silk. Look at this dewdrop laden silk of a inverted tent web spider. Now, can you see this tent is inverted? And look at that whole mesh which is there on the top and the different layers which you can see. I have tried to make a sketch out of it, but more than the sketch, this figure tells us more. So there is a layer here, and imagine one tiny animal like this creating this whole structure. I mean, if you give me to stitch something like this, I think I'll take some 14 days. I cannot stitch it in one day, whether it be crochet, whether it be silk threads, knitting wool, anything. It is complicated. And they exactly know how to make this 3D structure so that they will lie exactly at this spot, upside down. This is the typical web of a Citrophora cicatrosa. We have different species in this, Citrophora citricola also, Citrophora unicolor, and I think some more, Molucensis, some more species. But this one is the most common one, and in this sometimes we find that there are more number of individuals than one present. So semi-social behavior has been seen, and this particular structure interestingly is made by just one female, which is the most remarkable thing. Imagine you have to know what to connect where, and then this whole thing suspends in air and does not get blown away by the wind, also is able to take the weight of dewdrops. Okay, so it's not a joke to create something like that. Like I said, will be a irregular orb, but will be starting from one corner. These are the sketches which we have tried to put up, and in the center the uloborid is there. Next time you go across through a alley or a landing of a staircase, just look up. You know, if it is painted white, I can be 90% sure that it must be dwelled or it must be housed by is a typical uloborid, which is Uloboras krishnae. This is not a pretty common spider, but the one in the photograph here is pretty common. You will see the white one, or the feathery legged spider, like they call it, pretty common in all the staircase, alleyways, and the corridors. Wherever there is white color paint, they will nicely merge there and keep sitting without anybody noticing them. Unless and until the colony spreads across and there is a lot of cobwebs all over, one would not even notice that these guys are there. These Uloboridae family spiders are so adapted to human life and centered around human life that they can be present even in your car, inside, outside, on the top of the mirror. Sometimes the rear view mirrors will have the egg sacs. Thing the family in the entire spider world which is non-venomous. They are very safe. They do not bite. They do not attack. Please do not kill the spiders whenever you see them, because they are very interesting creatures to just observe. Just see what beautiful intricate webs do they make, so with so much patience. And it doesn't even take us a second to just flip that web like this. It's a little, insensitive. Of beaver, which is tetragnathidae. And like I said, whenever you cross a nala or a small pool of water, make it a point to bend down onto the little drains, even on your countryside or your environment near your house. You will definitely find the tetragnathids, and they are so thin, like a needle shape, mostly adapted to paddy field ecosystems, because these they'll just align themselves straight like a needle, and they'll not be seen. Again, come dawn or dusk, I mean towards evening, they'll go and place themselves there. So these are active even in the daytime. You can see them, I mean, most of the times they will be available on the web. This is stabilimentum, which I was telling you. This is another obweaver, again under Arenidae itself. So do you see that all throughout the pictures which we are trying to show you, the silk is constantly changing with the family, sometimes intra-family within the family through genus. A different genera having a different kind of silk requirement or the placement of silk and its design. How do they make it? Why do they make it is again the part of the mystery, which is partly solved, partly yet to be solved. Stabilimentum here has got different hypotheses why this is there. Some say it is UV deflecting. Some say it is there so that the animal who is trying to attack the web will be alert that there is something there which it should not go into and crash itself into. It protects the web from birds coming and striking, because when you look at the rest of the part of the whole orb, it is hardly visible, almost invisible. If you go in, the silk is not visible in front of you. So the bird's crashing through, neither the spider is going to eat the bird, nor is the bird interested in the spider. But what happens is, if you cross through it, the spider loses its whole effort of creating that orb. So it's extremely, a costly method of producing silk. It would not try to mend it again, repair it, go back to work. It just wants to sit in the recluse and rest and wait for the prey. So it will not like any bird to go and damage it. So mostly they say that it is to prevent those kind of accidents. This is sheet web. This is Nigma. And we have, you can just turn over any leaf in a dry deciduous forest. They will be plentifully available. Mostly not seen because it is on the underside of the leaf. But if you take a small magnifying, easily see them. Even in this photograph, here is the exact. Here are some unhatched eggs, and this is the spider here. Or that little mesh of thin silk under which it is completing its entire life cycle. Every opening you see, the spider can go in and go out. This is how irregular webs look like. Most prominently seen in Theridiidae, also like in Ericidae and other families. And they do not have a fixed pattern. Many Theridiidae genera are also found on the forest floor, like let's say Steatona, sometimes beneath rocks, right? And this particular animal, mostly you will see them underneath dry leaves. Look at the size of the spider. Here you can get a better comparison of how big it is. It is hardly even your thumbnail size, not even that big. How do you think in such an irregular web, which I have shown you here, how do you think does it place this dry leaf? How does the dry leaf come into that place? Does the spider know when the leaf is going to fall? To drag a leaf to the place where it wants to build a irregular web? Or does it just happen coincidentally and then it goes and takes shelter? What do you think is the answer? How does the spider every time remember? So Nesticodes rufipes and Parascatoda tepidarium, these two particular species will always be found beneath leaves. There are some other genera also which will be found typically like this beneath a dry leaf. Side of this, there will be egg sacs all stuck to the surface of the dry leaf. This dry leaf is exactly perfectly balanced with this irregular kind of a web. All its ends nicely knotted with it, intricately built. But where does this dry leaf come from? Does it ever occur to you that climbing up a tree, waiting for one of the leaves to reach senescence, then try to drag it down? Does it really do that? Do you think it is capable of doing that? A spider dragging a thing like you would pull, water from a well and all? Really? How does this happen? If anybody has an answer, I'll be very happy to listen to them.
Maybe they use the silk.
No, that's a very clever answer, I would say. The silk, of course, is very important, but I'm asking precisely about the leaf, which is, like a tent shape. Again, I'll give you a hint. Can you imagine the leaves with leaflets? Let's say gulmohar or, some of those avenue plantation amla, like amla. Have you seen those leaves? Do you think that those leaves will be useful? Do you imagine those leaves being turned and curved like this when they get dry? Can it be? No, right? They are leaflets. Won't get that space to build. So, hereditary spiders know that leaflet wale trees pe nahi jana hai. You don't have to go to a trees where there are leaflets. Technically, these spiders choose which tree to go and hang around, which leaf, and where will it exactly be falling, under which they can build the nest. But still my answer hasn't come, okay? We'll get back to it. Okay, look at this web on the left side of your slide. One of my favorite species, something I'm always in love with, mostly because of the intricacy of the web. Can you imagine anybody who can guess the size of this? Let me tell you that the one which is the node here, where the spider web, the nest is visible, is the top canopy, and what it extends down to is almost reaching the ground or the floor of the forest. So take a random guess, what would be the size of this nest? Roughly, let's say 5 feet. How tall do we stand? 5 to 6 feet, right? This is anyway larger than 5 to 6 feet. This particular photograph has been taken in Panna National Park when I was working there as a research scholar. And this is one of my most, favorite pictures because I was in awe at the first time I saw this particular web. Huge. And look at those irregular patterns inside. This is a criblet spider. We'll come into what is criblet and ecriblet. And those irregular kind of stitch work you see there makes it a glorious piece of artwork, which is just there, glistening in the completely morning sunshine of the forest through those yellow and green leaves, giving it a beautiful mystic look. But what is interesting is this, the whole thing is created by just one spider. Amongst the social spiders, there are different species. And one which we are looking at right here is Stegodipus pacificus. This is a solitary dweller, not a social animal like the other commonly seen Stegodipus saracinorum. So the nest you see on the right side is that of Stegodipus saracinorum. Now, what is specific about this is they are, they will single out from their mother and create small nodules like this, which is a mesh web, and they'll spread across this kind of a irregular web pattern and touch the forest floor. What is the point? One single spider lives just, these spiders which I have shown you here in the picture, lives for just one life cycle. So they will only reproduce once in their lifetime, which is not the same with the other spider families. Why do I say so? In my past talks, I have already covered maternal matrophagy, the maternal care in spiders, and mostly in social spiders, it is matrophagy. So this particular female, when it lays eggs, will use this nest, leave the babies here for some time, and be fed upon by the babies themselves and die. So it's just one clutch of eggs in the entire lifetime that it can produce, which is why all this effort, because they need a large space for so many babies to first have some initial days of their life where they can be here around, and then they will also single out into different trees, making a similar web of their own when they find a male and a mate and they're ready to lay eggs. Okay, so webs can give you plethora of information if you're ready to look at the natural history aspect of what the spiders can do and what do they do around with the webs. Okay, these are stalkers like we have already discussed in the initial slides, and this is a not a pair but two females from Vienna genus, which is predominantly found in the paddy fields. Again, like you can see the paddy leaf in my hand, and they will not use much of their energy to build silk. They will create small recluse areas like this into which they will fit in, fold a leaf, and make a egg sac. Wait there, let the babies hatch, and then they will also scramble out, leave the babies to their own destiny, and scramble out to hunt again. So they do not use silk as a medium or an apparatus to hunt for prey. So these are very cryptic when it comes to usage and expression of silk. Similarly, Oxyopody family, which is also a stalker when it comes to the guild, and they will be mostly attacking by ambush and stalking prey. They also use silk only when they have to rest somewhere, to watch upon babies or guard egg sacs. Thomisus, we have already discussed, they do not build silk. I mean, they do not build webs. They will only use silk to wrap the egg sacs. Some of the ground dwellers. These are some of the silk web structures which I wanted to show you. Why do we call a particular web as funnel web or a tunnel web? Sometimes these are tube webs. Why do we give those names? It is predominantly regarding the size and the shape of how the silk has been designed. Imagine one spider female taking all this area. Can you see how much foliage and dry leaf it has covered? That one full layer. Don't just see the central structure. Look at the extended places also where it is dragging those radial lines to attach to different places. What happens is when there is an insect which, because it will be resting somewhere inside here, when there is an insect which comes and falls on this, either by flight or by crawling, the sensation on this will be sensed by the stridulating hair on the spider's body. It can sense when there is a insect even present over here, because this will be vibrating, and that whole thing is carried on like a neuron from this place to there, like a motor nerve, and they get to know what is happening where. So they will immediately barge out of that small place, that funnel thing, and catch the prey. So when we go into the forest, what we do is sometimes, I mean, it's pretty wrong, but sometimes we do to see that whether there is a spider there or not. We'll pick up an insect and put it there on the web to see when it tries to struggle, if there is something coming out. Because if you poke a stick into it, never ever will the spider come out. Take it in written. If they are threatened in their own homes, they will go into some other corner of the world where you will never be able to see them. And if you lose it on the forest floor, forget it. It's not going to come back. So the only way to see a spider when it is there in this kind of arrangement is to lure it outside its home, and it can walk out. Okay, so only for pictures, huh? Not anything else. So these are the other ground dwellers which we find, and I was telling you how beautiful zodarids can be. This is one of my favorite spiders once again. That is Hermepus arjuna. Beautiful name. And these are some of the other ground dwellers. This is from Napocity family. Again, non-web builders, absolutely. And Corinidae, they are all runners on the ground, would hunt and prey. And zodarids also, they only make, would produce silk when they have to wrap it up around the egg sacs they produce. These are some of the other cryptic spiders which will express silk or will weave silk only when it is necessary. This is Clubionidae, and they will make, egg sacs. I mean, this is a sac-dwelling spider, technically. The common name is sac-dwelling spider. Foliage runners. On the underside of the leaves, you will find both the families, Clubionidae and Cheracanthidae. And that is how just this much of silk is needed in their entire lifetime. One, to hide themselves and keep their egg sacs inside it. The other two, just make a mesh and slide under it. So this is the parts of guild which we have here, and how much of spiders of which kind in the paddy field. So mostly you will see it is dominant because of the, dominated by the orb weavers.